What's up, guys? So the trade deadline is just passed for the NBA. So we're going to be going through every single trade. I'm going to be grading the trade for every single team, and I'm going to try to look for the positive on the positive side for every single trade. I don't think there was a lot of trades where a team lost, and so I'm going to be trying to give you guys the positive view of every single trade that has happened this NBA trade deadline. Let's get into it. All right, guys, this should be fun. I got all the trades pulled up right here, and we're going to discuss them. So I would say the first trade we're going to discuss is the Cleveland Cavaliers, trading DeAndre Hunter to the Kings in exchange for Keon, Ellis, and Dennis Schroder. Now, starting with the Cavs, I think this was an A trade for the Cavs. They significantly reduced their tax bill. They saved a lot of money moving off of DeAndre Hunter's salary. And also the DeAndre Hunter part in Cleveland, it just wasn't quite working. DeAndre Hunter's a great player. The Kings getting him is an interesting move. But I do think that getting Dennis Schroder as their backup point guard, knowing they were going to move off Lonzo Ball, and also adding Keon Ellis, who's another just defensive pest. He can get in there, he can shoot threes a little bit, and he can really just pester the other team on defense. I think it was a great move for Cleveland. I think it allowed them to get better and also save a lot of money. And for that reason, it's just an A trade. Now, for the Kings, I just don't understand the vision that they're going. I don't understand the direction they're moving. DeAndre Hunter's a great player. He can shoot threes. He's big. He can defend. So I would give it a C plus for the Kings, but man, it just seems like they're so lost. They give Dennis Schroder such a big contract just to trade him in the middle of the season. And yeah, I just don't understand the vision. I'll give them a C plus because I do like DeAndre Hunter as a player, but I think the Cavs did win this trade, saving a lot of money, getting the two players they got. I'll give the Cavs an A. Now for the next trade, we got the Pistons trading Jaden Ivey to the Bulls in exchange for Kevin Huerter, Darius, and they also received a pick swap from Minnesota. And Minnesota was able to send Mike Conley to Chicago and pretty much get off the Mike Conley contract, which is why they had to give up this pick swap. It's a very interesting trade. I would give it an A for the Pistons first. I'll start with the Pistons. I would give it an A for the Pistons. I understand that Jaden Ivey has a lot of potential, and moving off him is a little frustrating, but it wasn't working out in Detroit. He was always injured, and the team is too good for him to really find developmental minutes on the Pistons this season. So to get off him and to add a guy like Kevin Huerter, who I know has been struggling this year shooting the three, but it does give them exactly what they need in a role player who can step in there. He has playoff experience, and he can hit threes, and I think that's just a really perfect fit for the Pistons after losing Malik Beasley. And they got Duncan Robinson, but it's a really good fit next side, Cade Cunningham, who can just, probe the middle, kick out for threes. I think Kevin Huerter is going to be great. And they also received a pick swap from Minnesota, and that pick swap, it could move them up, maybe six to eight slots, maybe a little less depending on how the playoffs go. But yeah, it's a really interesting pick swap. It could land them a guy like Yaxel Lendenberg or another role player in this draft to really help them in their future. So I think it was an A for the Pistons. I think going off the Chicago Bulls, I think it's also just an A. I mean, you get a guy like Jaden Ivey who has a ton of potential, and you're going to allow him to grow, and you're just going to take a swing at a guy like Jaden Ivey, and they really didn't give up that much. So I think it's just an overall A for Chicago. For Minnesota, it's a little hard. They were trying to clear cap space to go after Giannis, which obviously we know didn't work, but I kind of understand it. I would probably give them a B for this move just to get off the Mike Conley contract. Giving away the pick swap is a little bit annoying, but I think it made sense, and I don't think you can punish them too hard for it. All right, we got our first pretty massive trade to discuss. This was the shock trade of Jaren Jackson Jr. being sent to the Utah Jazz. The full details of this trade were Jackson Londale, John Conchar, and Vince Williams to the Jazz. And Memphis received Walter Clayton Jr., Kyle Anderson, Taylor Hendricks, George Niangs, and 3 future first-round picks. These future firsts, I believe they had a couple of swaps with, the Suns. I think they got something with the Suns, the Lakers. Basically, future firsts that we don't really know how valuable they are going to be. They probably aren't going to be the most valuable, but still, 3 first-round picks to the Grizzlies. This trade is really fascinating. First, I'll start off with Memphis. I thought it was just I thought it was an A minus. I thought it was an A minus trade. I think you could even grade it a little higher. I think they needed this tank. They're going full rebuild mode, and so getting 3 first round picks for Jaren Jackson is pretty good, and you can basically argue with Walter Clayton Jr. That's a first round pick, and Walter Clayton Jr. just definitely has some upside, and so I think Memphis is really good in this trade. They have a GM who has drafted really, really well in the past, and so giving him a lot of first round picks. They have so many first round picks now after trading Des Bane and Jaren Jackson. I think it's really interesting, and I'm really excited to see where the direction of this team goes. They have some young players. We'll see what happens with Ja Morant. But overall, I thought it was a really good trade for Memphis. And Utah, it's very interesting. I think I'm going to give them a B+ for the trade because you look at it, Jaren Jackson Jr. fits really, really well with the Utah Jazz. You don't have to play him at center, and pairing him with with Walker Kessler at center is a very interesting partnership because Kessler is an amazing rebounder and is the type of physical presence in the paint that allows Jaren Jackson Jr. to do all his off-ball defense, secondary shot blocking ability, which has been his best position in his career. So you get that part of it, but you also can pair that with Lauri Markkanen, and that's really fascinating because Jackson and Markkanen are very capable on the perimeter. They can shoot threes. They can take people off the dribble, like high post stuff. And so I think that fit also is really interesting in terms of you're going to have a very massive front court, but it kind of all fits together. So I think the fit was very good. So you're thinking, why is this not a higher trade? Well, they need to keep losing games this season to get their first round pick, which is top 8 protected. Otherwise, it goes to Oklahoma City. And if they lose their first round pick this year, it's a disaster in this draft class. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if Jaren Jackson Jr. gets a calf strain in after the All-Star break. We'll see what they can do. But winning too many games for the Jazz would be really bad. And we'll see what happens with the lottery. But this has the potential to be a very interesting trade. But also, if Jaren Jackson Jr. comes in and the Jazz move out of the top 8, I don't know if you can justify this trade. Well, they're a very interesting team. I think they did this because of the rise of Keontae George, who's been unbelievable this season. But yeah, overall, very interesting fit. One I'm very interested to see. The Jazz are going to be very exciting to watch next season. But yeah, overall, I would give the Jazz a B+ and the Memphis an A-. So a pretty win-win trade, I would say. All right, we're going to skip some of these lower-end trades we don't need to discuss. We'll do a discussion on the Sixers trading Jared McCain to the Thunder for a 2026 first-round pick. I believe it's the Houston Rockets pick, as well as 3 second-round picks. I think Philly, it's hard to really grade this. I would probably give them a B. It's tough losing Jared McCain, but they have Maxey and Edgecombe, so it's just how is McCain really going to fit in this lineup where they want to re-sign Quentin Grimes? So I think getting a first-round pick for him and 3 seconds, it's a pretty decent return for a guy who definitely has a lot of upside. But yeah, I don't mind the trade for the Philly. I know a lot of Philly fans were kind of upset, but I think they got a decent return for him, so I would give him a B. For the Thunder, though, I mean, I think it's an A. I mean, yeah, you give up a lot of picks, but they have a lot of picks. The Rockets picks shouldn't be too valuable this season. And yeah, they just get Jared McCain, who is just a valuable asset, who has a lot of upside. The Thunder's track record of developing players is really good, so McCain going to that situation is scary. And the Thunder kind of needed another spark off the bench offensively in some games where their offense wasn't really clicking. And I could definitely see McCain filling in that gap in certain playoff games, kind of like you had A.J. Mitchell and Aaron Wiggins do last year in the playoffs. I think McCain definitely has the potential to be that for the Thunder. So I think it's just a very, very massive win for the Thunder. I would give them an A for his trade. But I don't think the Sixers really lost in this trade. I definitely understand where they're coming from. So I would give an A to the Thunder and a B to the Sixers. All right, blockbuster trade. We got the Cleveland Cavaliers sending Darius Garland and a second round pick to the Clippers in exchange for James Harden. This is a very fascinating trade on both ends. And I think starting with the Cavs, I know a lot of fans are really upset with getting rid of Darius Garland. Darius Garland was my favorite player in the NBA, and it does upset me that he left Cleveland. But you have to understand that Darius Garland, he was not available a lot, and his foot, it could be in a lot of trouble moving forward. And I think adding James Harden, you're getting the better player in the deal, and you're also just getting the more durable player. And for that reason, I'm going to give the Cavs an A-. I think the Cavs were not in a position to be able to make the NBA Finals this year as the current roster stood. And I think adding James Harden raises their ceiling and allows them to make a push to make the finals and even have a chance to win the NBA Finals. Now, I know James Harden has had his struggles in the playoffs, but I think pairing him alongside of a guy like Donovan Mitchell, who really would be able to elevate you in those clutch moments, I think adding James Harden will significantly raise the ceiling of this Cavs team. And also, James Harden is playing games. I mean, Darius Garland has missed a significant amount of time. He's looked not quite the same player he was last year, which was an amazing player. He was an all-star. He was shooting almost 50, 40, 90. He was borderline all-NBA. He was a phenomenal player, but I think adding James Harden does raise the ceiling of the Cavs this season. And for the LA Clippers, it's a little bit confusing, but it also makes a lot of sense. It's a very interesting trade. You're getting rid of Harden and the expiring deal, and you're adding a guy like Darius Garland, who that's going to take up a significant amount of your cap space. Over the next 4 years, Garland's going to make a lot of money. So for that instance, it doesn't make a lot of sense because the Clippers were trying to free up cap space and now aren't going to have as much cap space. But at the same time, I mean, you're getting 10 years younger at your point guard position. You're adding a guy like Darius Garland who, if he can live up to his potential and get over these injuries, it's going to be a massive, massive win for the Clippers. It'll be an A+ trade if Darius Garland can get back to his former self and plays games. But there's also the risk that Garland's never going to be the same, and the contract could become really, really bad. Garland's it's a small guard. We saw what happened with Trae Young. The league is starting to value these small guards less and less because of their defensive impact. And when you pair that with the fact that Garland is very injury prone, it's a very, very big risk. So I'm going to give the Clippers a B, leaning towards B-. I think the Darius Garland risk is really, really high. But I understand if that's too low because Darius Garland is a phenomenal player and LA is shooting high and they're really rebuilding looking at their young core. So Darius Garland could be a really good asset for them. So I'll give the Cavs an A- and I'll give the Clippers a B for this trade. All right, we got a couple of small trades to discuss. We got the Knicks adding Jose Alvarado in exchange for a couple second-round picks. I think it's just an A- for the Knicks. It makes them better. Deuce McBride's out, so adding Alvarado on the bench is good. I also understand it for New Orleans. I'll give them a B+, getting a couple seconds. Alvarado is not really a big part of your team, so that was, I think, just kind of a W trade for both teams. The Lakers added Luke Kennard for Gabe Vincent and a second-round pick. I don't really know if we have to discuss this, to be honest. I think it's just kind of a B for both teams. It's not a needle mover. Luke Kennard is a great idea. He shoots incredible from three, and then every team he's been on has just gotten rid of him because he can't play at the end of close games because of his defense liabilities. So we'll see what happens with the Lakers. It's a very interesting fit alongside Luka and LeBron and Reeves. These guys who should be able to set up Luke Kennard for a lot of open threes. It could be very interesting. The next big trade we got is the Hornets. They traded for Coby White from the Bulls in exchange for Ousmane Dieng, who they got from the Thunder, Colin Sexton, a couple of seconds. I think it's a really good trade for the Hornets. I mean, the Hornets are just on a tear. They're probably going to make the play-in game at the very least now. And I think adding Coby White, it's a fascinating fit. They now have 4 dudes who just love to chuck threes, but it's not that bad because they're all really, really good shooters. and they're on a really big win streak. I think adding Coby White, it's an upgrade from Colin Sexton. So I think it's just an A-minus trade. I mean, I can't really see how this doesn't make them better. I think Coby White's a great player. For the Bulls, it's tough to grade this trade because I know they were shopping Coby White and they were hoping to get more, but at the same time, it's kind of unfortunate that they weren't able to get like a first-round pick for him. So I think it has to be a B. I understand they wanted to trade him. They're trying to look to just acquire assets and trying to lose games, trying to get their first-round pick this year. So I kind of understand where they're going, but it is tough that they're not able to get a first-round pick in this trade, so I have to give them a B. A couple final trades here. We got the Timberwolves traded for Dosunmu from the Bulls in exchange for Rob Dillingham. I think 4 seconds, maybe a couple other players in there. But for the Timberwolves, it's definitely a good move. Rob Dillingham was not, I don't even know if he was playing for them. It was not working out. It sucks to like get rid of a guy you traded up for and drafted in the top 10, but they want to win the title either this year, next year. Like they're on the contending platform. So adding a guy like Dosunmu, sniper from 3, it's definitely going to improve their roster, their lineup, gives them another guard, which they desperately needed. So I'm going to give it a B plus, just for the fact that they missed on Rob Dillingham. Has to lower the trade, because if Rob Dillingham had been a success, they wouldn't have had to make this trade. I think for the Bulls, again, they're just an asset accumulation. They've accumulated so many second-round picks, so I don't know what that means. That probably means they're not very good. Second-round picks probably aren't worth a lot because the Bulls want them all. Sorry, Bulls front office. But adding Rob Dillingham is interesting. I don't know if I still believe in him, but I do think he definitely has some upside. The Bulls are just swinging with all these guys. They're swinging for the fences. If one of these guys can hit and become a quality player, it will make this trade deadline, looking back on it, a success. So I'll give it a B plus for the Bulls as well. So I think B plus on both sides is a fair grade for this trade. We got the Celtics adding Vucevic, again from the Bulls. The Bulls were very active. In exchange for Anthony Simons, they traded second-round picks. I think it's just a B plus probably for the Celtics too. I think this makes them better. It adds front court depth. It probably means Tatum is coming back, considering how good Anthony Simons has been. For the Bulls, they're getting off Vucevic. I don't know what they're going to end up doing with Simons. I guess it's just like a salary dump. But they should have traded Vucevic a long time ago. So I think it's a good for the Celtics. I'll give it a B minus for the Bulls. They should have traded Vooch a couple years ago, but I guess getting off him now, finally they did it. All right, we got 3 more pretty massive trades to discuss. We got the Pacers trading for Ivica Zubac from the LA Clippers in exchange for Bennedict Mathurin, Isaiah Jackson, 2 future firsts. Now, the future firsts are very interesting because it's this year's first-round pick, top 4 protected, and if it's in the top 4, the Pacers get it, and then the Clippers will get the 2031 unprotected first-round pick. The Clippers also pick up the 2029 Pacers pick. I think for the Clippers, this is an A-plus trade. A-plus trade. They're punting on this season, which is a little unfortunate considering the Thunder have their unprotected first. So they're not going to get their first-round pick this season, but I think for the Clippers, this doesn't really matter. They're done with that trade. That trade is in the past. And they're also just giving themselves an opportunity to get a first-round pick this year. I think if it falls between 5 and 9, because I think there's some other protections. But anyway, if the pick happens to fall between 5 and 9, the Clippers get a first-round pick in the top 10 in this loaded draft class, which I think is really, really good. But even if not, these Indiana picks in 29 and 31, they could be pretty valuable. I know the Pacers are going to be really good, but in 5 years from now, we don't know where the Pacers are going to be. So I do think that this trade was really, really good. You get to move more to your youth with their young center they have, pairing alongside with Darius Garland. I think that the Clippers do have a vision here. So I would give them an A-plus trade for the Zubac trade. For the Pacers, it's definitely risky. they're really just hoping that they can lose games and their pick is in the top 4. It's really risky, but adding Zubac is very fascinating to pair alongside with Halliburton next year. Siakam, they're hopefully top 4 pick this year. They're going to be right back for contending in the East. So I think I'll give a B for the trade because I think if they can manage to get a top 4 pick, this trade is a win. They're going to be contending in the East next year, but it is very risky. So I'll give the Pacers a B for this trade. Next, we got the Golden State Warriors adding Kristaps Porzingis from the Atlanta Hawks in exchange for Jonathan Kuminga and Buddy Hield. Now, for the Warriors, my mistake. This is probably, I don't really know how to grade this because if Porzingis plays and is healthy, it's just a slam dunk A+ trade. But obviously that's the point with Porzingis. You're taking on that risk that he's always injured. So I would probably give the Warriors a B+ for this trade. I think the fit is phenomenal when he's going to be healthy. He's a really, really good player when he's healthy. So I think for the Warriors, that part of the trade is a success. But obviously, it's very risky. They didn't have to give up any assets for him, draft assets, I should say. So I'll give it a B+ for the Warriors. For the Hawks, it kind of doesn't make a lot of sense. I guess you got Kuminga, who has some upside. I kind of think for the Hawks, they're just kind of not tanking this year, but they're just kind of buying into the fact that they're going to have a really, really good draft pick. Because they have the Pelicans unprotected, they also have, if the Bucks happen to have a better pick than the Pelicans, they can just get the Bucks. So the Hawks are going to have a very, very high chance at a top 5 pick. So I think they're kind of just transitioning to next season. Kristaps wasn't playing any games for them, so I guess for that sense it makes sense. So I'll give it a B for the Hawks as well. They're getting Kuminga, who has some upside. So I'll give a B for the Hawks and a B+ for the Warriors. All right, last trade to discuss. We got Anthony Davis in a shocking turn of events being traded to the Washington Wizards. The Wizards received Davis alongside with Jaden Hardy, D'Angelo Russell, and Dante Exum, while the Mavericks received Chris Middleton, A.J. Johnson, Tyus Jones, Marvin Bagley, 2 future firsts. Actually, not future. They get the Oklahoma City first this year, as well as the 2030 Golden State first-round pick, but that one is very protected. So it's pretty much, the picks are not that valuable, let's just say that. Overall, I think for the Wizards, I guess I have to give it a B+ because you're getting a guy like Anthony Davis who's so good when he plays, and you're not giving up pretty much anything for him. They didn't give up a lot of assets to get this guy like Anthony Davis, and I think their vision is they're going to have a really, really good pick this year, hopefully. And then they have just Trae Young, Anthony Davis, their first-round pick, and a lot of youngsters. And they're going to try to win games next year. So I think it's very fascinating. I think it's a B+ for the Wizards. I don't know how it really fits their timeline, but I guess when you get a guy like Anthony Davis that cheap, you got to do it. And they're going to be a very interesting team next year. Now, I know a lot of people were clowning the Mavericks for this trade, especially because it's tied in with the Luka trade. The Luka trade just is so bad. They got pretty much nothing in return for Luka Doncic, but you have to remember, they have Cooper Flag now. So as much as the Luka trade was bad, you have Cooper Flag, who looks like probably just a guy you can win championships with as your best player. Cooper Flag might be a top 10 asset player-wise in the whole league. So I think getting rid of Anthony Davis, you're just getting rid of that trade. You're just getting off Anthony Davis. They're going to probably trade Kyrie Irving in the offseason. I think it's a good trade. I just do. I think it's an A- for the Mavericks. You're just turning the page. I know you're not getting a lot for Anthony Davis, but what was Anthony Davis's trade value, really? He got injured again this season. And so I think getting off Anthony Davis is just a win for the Mavericks. Full future with Cooper Flag. I know Mavericks fans are still so mad about losing Luka, but you just have to understand you're turning the corner, and you got Cooper Flag, and you're going to build through Cooper Flag in the future. So I'll give it an A- for the Mavericks. That might be controversial. And I'll give it a B+ for the Wizards. I thought it was a win-win trade for both teams. And I'm very excited to see the future of both teams moving forward. All right, that concludes this video going through all the major trades that happened this deadline. Let me know your comments below about what your thoughts were on any of these trades. If you agreed with my analysis of the trade or you disagreed, anywhere, just drop your comments below. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for taking your time. So I'll see you in a little bit in the next video. Thank you guys.